realize that these are people who would make mistakes like we do. These are people who did normal things like we do, and abnormal things, of course, abnormal things just like we do. These are people who felt pain and felt embarrassment and made mistakes just like we did. Yet God, when he decides to make sure that his purpose comes to be and comes to pass, it doesn't matter what ugliness you might see that exists. Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for coming back, and thank you also if this is the first time that you have joined this amazing family of people. Today I'm going to talk about the story of Perez, like I promised last time. And if you haven't watched the previous video, it was about Ruth. You can go back and check that video. Now this story starts with a man called Judah. Judah was one of the 12 brothers who were sons of Jacob. Jacob, the brother of Esau, their father was Isaac. Okay, Jacob, who betrayed his brother. Yes, so he had 12. He had 12 sons. So it says, at the time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of Adullam named Hira. So his friend was called Hira. There, Judah met a Canaanite woman and he married her. And this Canaanite woman, together with Judah, they had 3 sons. First one was called Er, the second one was called Onan, and the last one was called Shelah. Now, according to what the Bible says, Er was a very, very evil man. He married a very beautiful woman called Tamar. They didn't have any children, but because he was very unrighteous and he was an evil man, God did not like him, and so God struck him and he died. Once he died, Judah gave Tamar to his second son, who was called Onan, and asked him to lie with her, have children with her on behalf of his brother Er. However, when Onan was given Tamar, he was jealous of his brother because he was like, this is my seed and I don't want to have children with this woman, children who will not be my children, children who will be my dead brother's children, so I don't want that. So he slept with Tamar, but instead of having children, or instead of having his seed into Tamar, he would withdraw from Tamar and then spill his semen on the ground. And according to the scriptures, God was very angry at Onan because that was very evil, and so he was struck dead. So this is the second son of Judah who died. Because of what? Because of the evil behaviors. Anyway, so Judah became very afraid and he decides to send Tamar back home and told her, you know what, when my third-born son is of age, I will give him to you. I will give you to him to have children, but right now just go home. So she was sent back home. Sending her back home meant that she was going to live a life of a widow. And most of the time, and in the culture of the Israelites, a widow was, even in our culture, most widows go through a lot of suffering, a lot of non-status, no status and all that. So she didn't have a status and she would have to dress like a widow, walk like a widow. Nobody would want to marry her, right? And this is a woman who has had 2 husbands who died on her. Okay, so she sent back home. After some years, Judah's wife died, and then they mourned. Once they had mourned, sharing of the sheep ceremony came up. And during that time, when they were sharing sheep, that period of sharing the sheep was like a ceremonial time when sheep were taken to one place, and it was mostly people who are rich who had so much sheep and animals. And so when the sheep were being sheared, you know, shearing is wananyolewa hizo manyoya and then used for wool and whatever. So it used to be a ceremony. They would slaughter some and eat and celebrate, and it was just a merry time. So Judah, after he had mourned, he went to where his sheep were being sheared. On his way, Tamar Remember Tamar, who was sent home, had wind that father-in-law is showing up. So she removed all her widow clothes and then put on very nice clothes and covered her face also with a veil, and then went to the road by the roadside to wait for her father-in-law. She knew that it was her father-in-law. And waited. So the father-in-law comes, finds this woman standing by the roadside, and she's covered her face. So he just automatically assumed this is a prostitute and approached her and asked her to sleep with him. And then Tamar said, yeah, I can sleep with you, but you have to leave me something. And then he was like, what do you want me to leave for you? And then the guy was like, Judah said, okay, fine, I'm gonna give you a small goat. And Tamar was like, okay, Sarah, you're going to give me a small goat, but you have to pledge, you have to give me something to remain with. So he asked, what do you want? And Tamar said, okay, give me your seal, your cord, and your staff. So he gave them to her, and then they went together, they slept, and actually she got pregnant. The next morning, she took these items that she was given by Judah and left. Went back to her home and put on her widow clothes. Okay? Now, Judah wakes up, goes back to his own shugulis, goes find his he went and found his friend and told his friend, yo, there's a pledge I made. Take this young goat and take it to the roadside. You will find some shrine prostitutes and you give it to her. Then there are things that she will give you back. Those are my stuff. Bring them back to me. So Hiram goes to the roadside where he was supposedly meant to meet the shrine prostitute. He gets there, he finds no one. So he asks around, okay, anyone seen the lady who stands here, the shrine prostitute? And people are like, we haven't seen any shrine prostitute here for a long time. Like, there's no existence of a shrine prostitute around here. So Hiram goes back, gives the information, and then Judah is like, okay, fine, we don't want to follow this up because, hey, we don't want embarrassment if people know what we have done and all that, you know. It's just better off if this lays low, and if anything, I've tried to pay my pledge, and she wasn't there. So 3 months go by, and then people find out, Tamar is pregnant, but they don't know who the father is. So she is accused of prostitution. And it becomes a big thing. The word reaches Judah. Judah gets worked up and he's like, bring out that woman. She has to be burnt to death. How can she prostitute? Okay, I'm just exaggerating. But yeah, he was angry and it was a bad thing. And the culture that they had then was, you know, it was just absurd. Prostitution was wrong and pregnancy out of marriage was wrong. And they had to burn and bury and it was just horrific. Okay, so Tamar is like, okay, fine, I understand, I'm pregnant, you don't even know the father, but the father of this pregnancy, the one responsible for this pregnancy, is the owner of these things. So take these items to my father-in-law and let him identify this. So when the items arrived to where Judah was, he finds out that it was his seal, it was his cord, and it was his staff. And what he said was so surprising. And I want to read it directly from the scriptures. This is Genesis 38, verse 26. Judah recognized them and said, she is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah, and he did not sleep with her again. Okay? So he recognized his items and he agreed that for sure. I am responsible for that pregnancy. And so from then on, he did not sleep with Tamar, even though his wife was dead. But he did not sleep with Tamar. So anyway, time came for Tamar to have babies. And they found out that she was carrying, not one, twins. So now, she's on labor. She's about to give birth, and then the first child, who was about to come out, pushed his hand out. And when he pushed his hand out, the midwife tied a scarlet or a red band on his arm, okay, to just say, okay, this one is the one who came out first. But then he receded and went back. And then another baby, the second baby, came out. And it was like a surprise. You know, when twins are born, most of the time the first baby comes out and then the second baby comes out. But this one, the first baby came out and then went back in. Then the second baby is the one who became the first baby. And the first baby is the one who was called Perez. Then the one with the red scarlet came out second and he was called Zerah. And that is the story of Perez. Perez was born to Tamar and Judah. Now I want to go back to Ruth and read to you the lineage of Perez, okay? When you go back to the book of Ruth 4 verse 18 says, this then is the family line of Perez. Perez was the son of Judah. Judah the son of Jacob. Jacob the son of Isaac. Isaac the son of Abraham. Okay, so this is the lineage family of Perez. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron the father of Ram. Ram the father of Aminadab. Aminadab the father of Nashon. Nashon the father of Salmon. Salmon the father of Boaz. Boaz the father of Obed. Obed the father of Jesse. And before I go on, Boaz the father of Obed, and his mother was Ruth, what we talked about last time. Okay, Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David. So yes, that's the story I wanted to tell you. That is the lineage of Christ when you go back. And again, I will repeat this. If you want to see the genealogy of Christ, you can read Matthew chapter 1. It has the whole from Abraham all the way to Joseph, the father of Jesus. So I hope that this is encourages you to read more of the Word of God, read the Bible. This whole story comes from the book of Genesis, chapter 38, from verse 1 to verse 30. And I have tried to just speak in brief, but you can go ahead and read it in detail and see how beautiful God can change a situation that would rather to us be so ugly and so bad, but then he turns it to become one of the best situations that, you know, in the end, as we know that this is the lineage of Christ, and knowing his family, knowing Jesus Christ's family on earth, what his ancestors or ancestry looks like, is just a wonder. You realize that these were just people like us. You realize that these are people who would make mistakes like we do. These are people who did normal things like we do, and abnormal things, of course, abnormal things just like we do. These are people who felt pain and felt embarrassment and made mistakes just like we did. Yet God, when he decides to make sure that his purpose comes to be and comes to pass, it doesn't matter what ugliness you might see that exists. So I hope this story encourages you, and I hope this story motivates you to also go ahead and go and read it by yourself, so that you get this information all by yourself and experience these words for yourself. God bless you. Have a lovely, lovely week, and see you next weekend. Bye.